Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In our today's video, I'll be showing you how I created this clinic patient satisfaction dashboard using Python and Streamlit. So it's currently running on my computer system. Alright, so this dashboard makes use of two filters, which is the select visit type and the overall satisfaction rating. So you can select a particular visit type and it filters the entire dashboard, and you can also use your slider filter to select your rating. Okay, also in this dashboard we'll be answering three different questions. What is the average rating per visit type? I'll be using a bar chart to answer this question. We'll also be looking at the feedback sentiment overview, where we'll be looking at how many percent of patients gave a positive feedback, how many percent gave negative feedback, and how many percentage gave a neutral feedback. Why? Our last chart will be a line chart that looks at the trends of satisfaction over time. How satisfied were patients over time? Okay, so this is a line chart, but because we have too many values, it's a bit scattered. So if we go ahead and filter for just one visit type, you will see that it becomes a bit more clearer. And at the end of the table, we'll also be adding a data preview table that will be showing us just the first 10 rows of our data set. Okay, so this is just a data preview that shows us what our data set looks like. So remember, we just filtered for consultation visit types. If you look at this column, you see that all we have are consultation values. If I go ahead and use the all filter button, you'll see now that the visit type, we now have the various visit type for the first 10 rows. So if you want to see how I was able to create this dashboard using Python and Streamlit, then I would encourage you to watch this video till the end. I'll be giving you a detailed step-by-step guide on how to create this dashboard. It is beginner friendly. It is a short and quick video. I don't want to make it so long so that it doesn't get boring. It is short and quick, and it's also a project that you can add to your portfolio, especially if you are in the healthcare data analytical space and you want something to add to your project portfolio. This is a perfect project for that. So without wasting time, let's dive right in. So the first thing we are doing here is to create our Python file where we'll be writing all our code, and I've shown you how to do this in our previous video. I've already created mine, which is the rating.py file, and to do that you can come to this first icon that says new file. You can click on it and type in the name of what you want your file to be called and add the .py extension, because that is what makes it a Python file. Okay, so let me leave that. Now that we've created our Python file, I also want to show you our data set, what it looks like. So this is our clinic patients CSV file, and it contains various columns: the patient's ID, the age of the patient, the gender, the visit type, the wait time in minutes, the staff friendliness, how friendly was the hospital staff, how did the doctor communicate, was the facility clean, what was the overall score, or how satisfied were you overall, and the visit day, what day did you visit. Okay, so those are the information that is contained in this CSV file. I'll also be including this CSV file on the video description so that you can go ahead, download this data set and code alongside with me. I would highly recommend you do that, because once you are learning and you are practicing or you are doing it, it makes it to stick to you. All right, so instead of you just watching this video, I would encourage you download the data set and code alongside with me. So the first thing we are going to do is to import our libraries, which are pandas. We'll be importing pandas as PD. We'll be importing Streamlit, because remember that we're going to be running this data set on the Streamlit platform, right? So we'll be importing Streamlit as st, and also we'll be importing matplotlib.pyplot as plt. So if you know how to use Python, you will know that matplotlib.pyplot is used in creating charts in Python. So let's go ahead and do all this. So we have imported all our libraries into our system, right? So now the next thing we want to do is to import in our data set. We need to read in our data set, and to do that we'll be using pandas to do that. So pd.read_csv will help us to read in our data set, and we just have to pass in the file part where this data set is being saved on our computer system into the pd.read_csv. So let's go ahead and do this as well. Okay, so we've loaded our data set into our Python file. So we have two lines of codes here. The first line of code shows us reading in our data set as a CSV file. All right, so we just have to pass in the file path where this file is saved in our computer system and use the pd.read_csv to read this in, and we'll be saving this as df. Now we have our data frame, right? The next thing we want to do is to convert this date column in our data frame. We want it to be as a date data type. All right, so in Python data frame we have various data type. We have string, integers, floats, date, and so on. So we want to ensure that our date column is a date data type because we need it as a date, since we'll be doing various calculations with that. So now once we are done with that, we can now go ahead and start creating our dashboard. And the first thing we want to do is to give our dashboard a name. So we'll be using Streamlit to create the dashboard header and title. So if you take note, anything that relates to the dashboard itself, when it comes to creating things on the dashboard, we have to use Streamlit. So we'll be calling on st, which is streamlit.title, to give this dashboard a name. I'll be giving it the clinic patient satisfaction dashboard as its name. And also we'll also be adding a brief text on top of this dashboard that says this dashboard explores the patient satisfaction rating across the various departments, sentiment distribution, and trends over time. All right, now we are done with that. The next thing we want to do is to create our sidebar filters. Now to create the sidebar filters in dashboard, we'll be using the streamlit.sidebar.header to give this a name, which will be the filter's name. And now to create our department filter, remember that we are going to have a visit type filter where you can pick on the various departments you visited. All right, so for the department filter, we'll be using the st.sidebar.select box, because we want a situation where we can select from the various visit type, right? So if we take a look at our CSV file once more, under the visit type we have routine check, consultation, follow-up, emergency, and so forth. So we want a situation where we can filter our dashboard based on these various visit type. To get all the unique visit type on your CSV file, you can call on the .unique method. So calling on the .unique method on the df visit type is going to give us the unique names in the visit type, and we can add the tool list here to create a list with this. So you can also see that we sorted this so that we can get this value in ascending order. The first value using alphabetical order comes in first. And we also want to add an order additional option where we have the all option, so that in case we want to filter our dashboard, we want to see all department visit type all at once, we can also do that as well. So this is just a straightforward process in creating the department filters. The next filter we want to create is also going to be a rating score slider filter. So for this rating range slider filter, we'll be using the Streamlit sidebar.slider to create this. So first of all, we're going to give this a name, which is going to be the overall satisfaction rating, and we're going to is going to take in 3 values: the minimum rating value, which is 1, the maximum rating value, which is 5, and the range of values it can accommodate, which is 1 to 5. Okay, so with this we've been able to create our rating range slider. Now we can now go into creating this dashboard proper. So first of all, to start creating this dashboard proper, you remember that we've created our sidebar filters. Now we need to be able to write a line of code that help us to filter these dashboards, that will be making use of these sidebar filters which we've created to filter our dashboard. So the first thing we want to do is using our rating score. Remember that we created a filter that help us to filter our dashboard based on the values or the rating score selected. So we want a situation that when we pick from, for example, we pick from rating from 3 to 5, it only returns rows of data that has that rating from 3 to 5. So we want to be able to filter our data frame, write a line of code that helps us to do the filtering of our data set. And to do that, we'll be using the subset method to filter our data set. And all we want to say is if our overall satisfaction score in our data frame is greater than or equals to our minimum rating range value and it is lesser than or equals to the maximum rating range value, then go ahead and return just those lines of code. All right, so that's just a easy way to create the filtered data frame. Now remember that we also have the department filter where we are fitting by the visit type, right? So we also want to say that aside from that, if the department filter is not equals to all, meaning we selected a particular visit type, we go ahead and return just rows of data with that visit type. So for example, if we selected consultation as our department filter or as a visit type, go ahead and return only rows of data that has consultation as their visit type. So you can see how we implemented using Python code to filter our data frame. So now that we are done with this, we can now start creating our charts using our filtered DF. Now the first chart we are going to be creating is the average rating per department. We want to look at what is the average rating per department. When we talk about department, we are referring to the visit type, right? If it was consultation, it was emergency, it was routine check, what was the average rating score given by patients or visitors? So the first thing we want to do is to give this a title or a subheader using the streamlit.subheader, and we'll be calling this the average rating per department. And now to get the average rating, we have to use the dot group by method. So we'll be grouping by the visit type and we'll be calculating the average score on the overall satisfaction, right? So calling on the dots mean on overall satisfaction columns returns the average rating per the visit type columns. Okay, so once we've been able to get this average rating per visit type, we can now go ahead and use this information to create our charts. So to create the charts, we'll be using the plt.subplot method in matplotlib, and to do this we have to create the figure and the as-is. All right, so everything you want to do is going to be on the as-is, and we just have to call on the fig to show us our chart. So we'll be using the as-is.bar since we want to create a bar chart to create our bar chart, where we'll be having the visit type and we'll also be having the overall satisfaction score. We'll use the for matplotlib fig as-is, they use set_y label and set_s label to create their y label and s label values, and we just have to now call on fig on the st.pyplot to show us our chart. So if we go ahead and save this, let's do Ctrl S and let's go ahead and run a new terminal. Now we want to just see what our dashboard looks like. We've been writing lots of code. Now let's see what we've created so far. So what we have to do now to see our dashboard, we call on Streamlit. So you say Streamlit run the name of your Python file which you created earlier, rating.py. So let's go ahead and click on enter and run this and see what we've created so far. So you can see now that we have our dashboard running on our computer system. These are the filters we created. So we have the consultation, emergency, follow-up, and routine check. We also have our slider where we can slide between. So you can see as I'm using the slider, this chart here becomes updated. So let's go back and get all the values, and this is the name of our dashboard. This was the short text we added to it. This is the name of our chart, and this is the chart showing us the average rating per department. All right, so you can see that we are on the right track. So let's go ahead and keep on building. So the next thing we want to create is our feedback sentiment overview chart. All right, so this feedback sentiment overview chart is going to be telling us how many percent gave a positive review, how many percent of visitors or patients gave neutral review, and how many percent gave negative review. And remember that looking at our data set, we don't have any column that shows positive, negative, or neutral review, but we are going to go ahead and create that column using Python functions. All right, so we'll be using this our column of data which talks about the overall satisfaction, where patient graded from 5 to 1. So what we want to say that if a patient gave an overall satisfaction of 4 to 5, it's a positive review. If the patient gave a overall satisfaction score of 3, then it's a neutral review. While if the patient gave an overall satisfaction score of less than 2, then it is a negative review. So let's see how we'll be able to create that column on our data set. So to do that, the first thing we want to do is to give this a name, which is the st using st.subheader, and this is going to be the feedback sentiment overview. All right, so now what we want to do next is to create functions. So in Python gives us the ability for the developer or the user to be able to create its own function. So to do that, you have to first call on def. This is a constant key, so def. Then now the next thing is to give your function a name, and in this situation we called ours the sentiment underscore label. So we can also go ahead and pass in a value as our parameter, and in this situation it's going to be score, because we are going to be grading the various scores, right? So we are saying if the score is greater than or equals to 4, then it should return positive. If the score is equals to 3, it should be neutral, and if the score is less than, anything else should return as negative. All right, so once we've done that, we can now apply this function we've created to our overall satisfaction column using the .apply method. So once we call on the .apply method on the overall satisfaction score using our newly created function, then we'll be able to create our extra column or our new column, which is the sentiment column. All right, this sentiment column now is going to be containing values such as positive, neutral, and negative. Once we've done that, we can now call on the .value count. The .value count is going to count how many rows of data gave a certain value. All right, so with this, we've been able to return a list containing the sentiments and the numbers of count. So we'll be getting something like positive 45%, neutral 15%, negative 35%, and so forth. So now let's go ahead and create our chart using these values we've gotten. So send method, like we did earlier, will be calling on the plt.subplot to create our chart, and this time around, since we are using a pie chart, we'll be using the .py method on our axis, right? So now all we have to do is to pass in the sentiment count and also pass in our labels as the sentiment. So the sentiment contains the positive, neutrals, and negative, right? While sentiment count contains the numbers of rows that give out those sentiment values, and we'll be using the auto pc to make sure this is read as percentages. We pass our starting angle at 90, and all we have to do now is to call on the st.py plot on our figure to show us our chart. So if I control save this, let's say control x to save, and let's go back to our dashboard and reload this and see if it has been updated. So now let's go ahead and scroll down, and now we can now see that we have our pie charts created, where we have the positive feedback as 43%, negative feedback 42%, and neutral feedback at 15%. And on this dashboard, our filter options works as well. So if for example, if I say I want to look at only patients that visited the emergency department or unit, we can now see that it filters our dashboard, and it shows us that the negative feedback were way higher, 43.3%. Positive feedback was just 38.8%, and neutral feedback was 17.9%. So let's go ahead and keep on building our dashboard. Now, the last chart we'll be creating is to show us the trends of satisfaction over time. How satisfied were visitors, or how satisfied were our patients using our clinic facility over the time. So the first thing we want to do is to give this a sub-header, which is the satisfaction trends over time using Streamlit, right? So now the next thing we want to do is to group our data set by the visit date. So we want to see, since we are looking at over time, we are using our visit date, so we want to group by every day in the data set, and want to see the average satisfaction score that we're given by the visitors or by patients using the facility, right? So once we've done that, we'll be saving this as trend_df, and now we'll go ahead and create a line chart. So as usual, calling on the plt.subplot will help us in creating our charts. I told you previously that we have to create pass in all our values on the axis and call on the fig to see the chart, right? So on the axis.plot, we'll be passing in the visit date and also the overall satisfaction score. Remember that we are using trend_df, not the filtered df, because we've been able to get the average satisfaction score based on the visit date, and we'll save that on trend_df, right? So we'll be getting the visit date from our trend_df and the overall satisfaction score from the trend_df, and we'll also be setting our s label as date, the set our y label as the average satisfaction score, and we can now call on the st.pyplot on fig3 to create our chart. So if we go ahead and save this as usual, and let's go back to our dashboard and see if it has been updated as well. So now if we scroll down to the end of our dashboard, we'll be seeing a line chart showing us satisfaction trend over time. All right, so these are the various dates, and this is our line chart. It's a bit clustered, so let's go ahead and look at just one department. Let's look at the emergency room. All right, so we can see how satisfied patients were using the emergency room over time. All right, so the last thing we want to do on our dashboard is to just add in a table that shows us the first 10 rows of our data sets. So this is just going to be like a preview that shows us, it previews what the first 10 rows of our data set looks like. So to get the first 10 rows in your data set, remember that all you have to do is call on the .add method. We call on .add and pass in 10 to give us the first 10 rows of our filtered df, and we just have to use the st.dataframe to make sure that it returns a data frame structure back to us. So you can go ahead and save this, and if we go back to our dashboard and load this, and let's scroll down, you see now that we have a table that shows us the first 10 rows of our data frame. So this was how I was able to create this dashboard. It is very highly interactive. We can filter for a particular, let's look at consultation now, and it shows us the average rating for consultation, which is about, it was lesser than 3, so the clinic really has to improve. So for consultation, they have a average rating score of about 2.8, which is very low. And if we look at the feedback sentiment, we can say we have higher amount of negative review. 46.1% were all negative reviews. Then we have 39.3 as positive reviews and 14.6 as neutral reviews. So now if we scroll down and look at our satisfaction trend over time, so you can see the various changes in satisfaction score over the months, and also have a table that shows us the first 10 rows of these patients. All right, so you can also use the rating scale to filter by this, and we are just going to return patients that rated from 2 to 5. So if we go ahead and look at the overall satisfaction score, you see we have 2, 4, 2. We are not going to be getting any values of 1 because we've set our scale to look at just patients that are rated from 2 to 5. So these were the line of code I wrote to be able to create our dashboard. We have about 103 lines of code to be able to create this dashboard. It is simple and easy, beginner friendly, straightforward, and it is something that you can include into your healthcare data portfolio to create project portfolio for your future employers. All right, so if you have any questions, then ensure to drop it in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer each and every one of you, and also give this video a thumbs up if you find it useful, educative, or if you know somebody that this video will be helpful to, then share this video to that person. I would love this video to reach a larger audience. All right, and if this is your first time you're coming across this YouTube channel, then please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, because here all we do is we analyze anything data, especially relating to the healthcare data analysis field. So if you're coming from any career path and you want to transition into the healthcare data analysis career path, then this YouTube channel should be your go-to YouTube channel. You can go through our playlist, you'll see various videos where we analyze healthcare data. All right, so with that being said, bye for now and see you in my next video.